Chapter 8 of those who have attained the position of prince by villainy. But as there are still two ways of becoming prince, which cannot be attributed entirely either to fortune or to ability, they must not be passed over. Although one of them could be more fully discussed if we were treating of republics, there are when one becomes prince by some nefarious or villainous means, or when a private citizen becomes the prince of his country through the favor of his fellow citizens. And in speaking of the former means, I will give two examples, one ancient, the other modern, without entering further into the merits of this method, as I judge them to be sufficient for anyone obliged to imitate them. Agathocles, the Sicilian, rose not only from private life but from the lowest and most abject position to be king of Syracuse, the son of Apata. He led a life of the utmost wickedness through all the stages of his fortune. Nevertheless, his wickedness was accompanied by such vigor of mind and body that, having joined the militia, he rose through all its grades to be pastor of Syracuse. Having been appointed to this position, and having decided to become prince, and to hold with violence and without the support of others that which had been granted him, and having imparted his design to Hamilcar the Carthaginian, who with his armies was fighting in Sicily, he called together one morning the people and senate of Syracuse, as if he had to deliberate on matters of importance to the republic, and at a given signal had all the senators and the richest man of the people killed by his soldiers. After their death, he occupied and held rule over the city without any civil disorders. And although he was twice beaten by the Carthaginians and ultimately besieged, he was able not only to defend the city, but leaving a portion of his forces for its defense, with the remainder he invaded Africa, and in a short time liberated Syracuse from the siege and brought the Carthaginians to great extremities, so that they were obliged to come to terms with him, and remain contented with the possession of Africa, leaving Sicily to Agathocles. Whoever considers therefore the actions and qualities of this man will see few, if any, things which can be attributed to fortune. For, as above noted, it was not by the favor of any person, but through the grades of the militia, which he had gained with 1,000 hardships and perils, that he arrived at the position of prince, which he afterwards maintained by so many courageous and perilous expedients. It cannot be called a virtue to kill one's fellow citizens, betray one's friends, be without faith, without pity, and without religion, by which methods one may indeed gain an empire, but not glory. For if the virtues of Agathocles in Bravingad, overcoming perils, and his greatness of soul in supporting and surmounting obstacles be considered, one sees no reason for holding him inferior to any of the most renowned captains. Nevertheless, his barbarous cruelty and inhumanity, together with his countless atrocities, do not permit of his being named among the most famous men. We cannot attribute to fortune or merit that which he achieved without either. In our own times, during the reign of Alexander VI, di Oliveretto do Fermo had been left a young boy under the care of his maternal uncle, Giovanni Fogliani, who brought him up and sent him in early youth to fight under Paolo Vitelli, in order that he might, under that discipline, obtain a good military position. On the death of Paolo, he fought under his brother Vitellozzo, and in a very short time, being of great intelligence and active in mind and body, he became one of the leaders of his troops. But deeming it servile to be under others, he resolved, with the help of some citizens of Fermo, who preferred servitude to the liberty of their country, and with the favor of the Vitellis, to occupy Fermo. He therefore wrote to Giovanni Fogliani how, having been for many years away from home, he wished to come to see him and his city, and in some measure to revisit his states, and as he had only labored to gain honor, in order that his fellow citizens might see that he had not spent his time in vain, he wished to come honorably accompanied by 100 horsemen, his friends and followers, and prayed him that he would be pleased to order that he should be received with honor by the citizens of Fermo, by which he would honor not only him, Oliverato, but also himself, as he had been his people. Giovanni did not fail in any duty towards his nephew. He caused him to be honorably received by the people of Fermo, and lodged him in his own houses. After waiting some days to arrange all that was necessary to his villainous projects, Oliveretto invited Giovanni Fogliani and all the principal men of Fermo to a grand banquet. After the dinner and the entertainments usual at such feasts, Oliveretto artfully introduced certain important matters of discussion, speaking of the greatness of Pope Alexander and of his son Caesar, and, and of their enterprises, to which discourses Giovanni and others having replied, he all at once rose, saying that these matters should be spoken of in more secret place, and withdrew into a room where Giovanni and the other citizens followed him. They were no sooner seated than soldiers rushed out of hiding places and killed Giovanni and all the others. After which massacre, Oliveretto mounted his horse, rode through the town, and besieged the chief magistrate in his palace, so that through fear they were obliged to obey him and form a government, of which he made himself prince. And all those being dead who, if discontented, could injure him, he fortified himself with new orders, civil and military, in such a way that within the year that he held the principality, he was not only safe himself in the city of Fermo, but had become formidable to all his neighbors. And his overthrow would have been difficult, like that of Agathocles, if he had not allowed himself to be deceived by Caesar Borgia, when he besieged the Orsinis and Vitellis at Sinigaglia, as already related, where he also was taken 1 year after the parricide he had committed, and strangled, together with Vitellozzo, who had been his teacher in ability and atrocity. Some may wonder how it came about that Agathocles, and others like him could, after infinite treachery and cruelty, live secure for many years in their country, and defend themselves from external enemies without being conspired against by their subjects, although many others have, through their cruelty, been unable to maintain their position in times of peace, not to speak of the uncertain times of war. I believe this arises from the cruelties being used well or badly. Well used may be called those, if it is permissible to use the word well, of evil, which are committed once for the need of securing one's self, and which afterwards are not persisted in, but are exchanged for measures as useful to the subjects as possible. Cruelties ill used are those which, although at first few, increase rather than diminish with time. Those who follow the former method may remedy in some measure their condition, both with God and man, as did Agathocles. As to the others, it is impossible for them to maintain themselves. Whence it is to be noted that in taking a state the conqueror must arrange to commit all his cruelties at once, so as not to have to recur to them every day, and so as to be able, by not making fresh changes, to reassure people and win them over by benefiting them. Whoever acts otherwise, either through timidity or bad counsels, he is always obliged to stand with knife in hand, and can never depend on his subjects, because they, through continually fresh injuries, are unable to depend upon him. For injuries should be done altogether, so that being less tasted, they will give less offense. Benefits should be granted little by little, so that they may be better enjoyed. And above all, a prince must live with his subjects in such a way that no accident should make him change it, for good or evil. For necessity arising in adverse times, you are not in time with severity, and the good that you do does not profit you, as it is judged to be forced, and you will derive no benefit whatever from it.